Take one.
I'm gonna try to keep this casual today. I'm gonna not do this as stiltedly as usual. I'm gonna be fun and relatable today for you, the audience member. I'm gonna be a relatable guy like one of your favorite YouTubers.
You can trust me.
And you can trust the Xbox One Elite Controller Series 2. Hello, I'm Tim Rogers. You were watching Kotaku.com, and today I'd like to do a quick, no-nonsense review of the Xbox One Elite Controller Series 2. Well, let's not false advertise right off the bat. Let's not say no nonsense. Let's say less nonsense. I would literally die if I tried to talk for 10 minutes without perpetrating at least some nonsense. So I want to give you about 80% less nonsense than usual today because I love this controller. I did some rough tallying, and it turns out that I have used my original Xbox One Elite controller for about 2,800 hours since buying it in 2015. I loved the original Xbox One Elite controller so much that I made a sanctimonious point of always playing multi-platform games on the Xbox One. I loved the Xbox One Elite controller so much that I bought an Xbox One X. That's the Xbox One Elite controller of video game consoles. So as soon as I heard Microsoft were making an Xbox One Elite Controller Series 2, some part of my brain that thinks I have literally any money at all immediately decided to buy one. I'm saying this up front so that you know where I'm coming from. I tested the Xbox One Elite Controller Series 2 from the perspective of someone who has spent almost 3,000 hours palm-gravying all over the original Xbox One Elite controller. And you know what? This is my video, so I'm gonna say that's a valid perspective. Seriously, you know who the target audience for the Xbox One Elite controller is? Well, pro gamers, yes. Rich people? Sure. Though it's mostly for weirdos like me. Oh yes, I don't care how much of a weightlifting, football-watching, beef-eating buddy boy you are. If you own an Xbox One Elite controller, you probably have a lot more in common with me than you don't. You sad, weird freak. See you at my birthday party. I'm not an esports champion, and I don't drive a BMW, though I do get a lot of video games for free, and I do have to play them for my weird job. And you know what? It turns out the Xbox One Elite controller was a pretty frugal investment on that end. Between 2014 and 2016, I tested a 4-player multiplayer game I was developing at the time for PC, PlayStation 4, and Xbox One. In over 3,000 total hours of playing across 100 different controllers, my team of testers destroyed 62 PlayStation 4 controllers, 18 Xbox One controllers, and 0 Xbox One Elite controllers. And this right here is the one Xbox One Elite controller I purchased in 2015 to test that game. I still use it every day, more or less every day. And yes, the 2,800 hours figure I quoted earlier did not include the testing of my own game. It's just all the games I've played since then. For that kind of durability, I would say that this Xbox One Elite controller's $150 price tag ain't so bad. Now, Microsoft only sent us this Xbox One Elite Series 2 controller last Friday, and it is Monday right now as I sit here recording this, so any math detectives out there might calculate that I couldn't possibly have spent 3,000 hours testing the Series 2. What I've done instead is play a selection of games from different control styles for 3 hours each. For example, I played Call of Duty Modern Warfare to test the triggers. I played Bloodstained Ritual of the Night to test the D-pad. And I played Forza Horizon 4 to test the most extreme use case for the paddles. I played Forza Horizon 4 for 4 hours, not 3 hours though, because you're not just going to play Forza Horizon 4 for 3 hours. Also, I used the Elite controller's rear paddles for gear shifting in racing games, and I really wanted to stress those paddles for this test. Finally, I played Devil May Cry 5 pretty much all the way through from start to finish just to put everything together. I also played an hour of Fortnite, though what is an hour of Fortnite, really? I mean, come on. For each game I tested, I made a 4-paddle profile in the Xbox One's Xbox Accessories app, though to be honest, I really only used 2 paddles in half of the games I played half of the time. Sometimes you just don't need 4 paddles. I have about 25 hours experience playing with the Xbox One Elite Controller Series 2. let me tell you how it makes me feel. If you just want the verdict, is this controller good or not, I'll tell you, even as a person who already owns the original Xbox One Elite controller, 25 hours with the Series 2 has convinced me to upgrade. The new features and improvements are more than substantial enough for my money, which, to be clear, does not actually exist. So actually, let's talk about my money for a minute here. Microsoft did send this Xbox One Elite controller Series 2 to Kotaku.com for free, though it belongs to the office, not specifically to me. So when I get a game for free and I make a video in which I say, I love it, and you accuse me of only loving it because I got it for free, I must confess I usually find it difficult to argue with you without sounding like an ignoramus. Though in this case, I assure you, I love this thing enough to spend $180 of my own money. Then again, yes, I get most of the big AAA video games for free, so my video game buying budget might be different from yours. Since I don't have to spend any money on Death Stranding, Call of Duty Modern Warfare, or Pokemon Sword, that leaves me just about $180 of theoretical discretionary income lying around. I might as well spend that on this controller. First, let's talk about the box. The Xbox One Elite Controller Series 2 has got a box. Who cares? This is not an unboxing video. Actually, you know what? At the end of this video, I'm gonna put this thing back in the box, and then I'm gonna put it on a shelf, and then I'm not gonna ever touch it again because it's not mine. So we can call this a reboxing video. Let's talk about the software experience. Like the original Xbox One Elite controller, the Xbox One Elite Series 2 downloads new firmware when you plug it in. When I opened the Xbox Accessories app on my home Xbox One X, it offered to import all my button mapping profiles from my Xbox One Elite Series 1 controller, and it worked out just fine. The Elite 2 button remapping app actually has about a dozen new features over the Elite Series 1's button remapping app. You can store more profiles in the cloud, for example. You can remap a button or a paddle to be a shift key and assign a shifted function to any other button or paddle, which means with the Elite 2, you can turn any video game into its own little Kingdom Hearts 2 fan fiction experience. That's one for the Kingdom Hearts 2 fans out there. You can also assign a paddle or a button to the Xbox system level functions, such as take a screenshot and record that. I don't know about you, though, I like clicking a paddle to record a minute of footage a lot more than I like yelling, record that at a Kinect, which, yes, to be honest, I have not done since like a week after the Xbox One first came out, when I unplugged my Kindle. Kinect. I just call the Kinect a Kindle. I'm leaving that in. Pressing a paddle is better than pressing the Xbox button and pressing X. Here's a subtle one. The trigger tuning interface for the Elite 1 and Elite 2 is largely the same, though if we plug in an Elite 1, we can see that engaging the hair trigger actually kills the bottom 25% of the trigger throw. The Elite 1's hair trigger locks are purely physical, meaning that if a developer did not specify a trigger actuation distance below 74% of trigger throw, you can't use hair triggers to perform that particular function. That's why Microsoft built the hair trigger tuning function of the app, so that you can change the pull distance. The Xbox One Elite Controller Series 2, however, engages the software component along with the physical trigger locks. So if you physically lock the trigger at 75%, it tells the system that the new bottom of the trigger pull is 100%. So when Microsoft says something like, this controller has 80 new features, this is the sort of thing they mean, and if you start adding these up, you get some pretty great stuff. Furthermore, the software recognizes stick drift. The analog sticks on the Xbox One Elite controllers are literally made of steel, so they're much, much less prone to drift than some bioplastic analog stick you'd find on the stock Xbox One controller or the PlayStation 4 controller, or God forbid, the Nintendo Switch. Though some users of the Xbox One Elite controller did get pretty upset about stick drift. I personally did not have any stick drift problems with my Elite One and almost 3,000 hours of play, though maybe I'm just a gentle man. I don't know. Whatever you are, the Elite 2 possesses software-level drift prediction, which is a fascinating little thing to think about. This isn't just a game controller, it's a piece of sophisticated hardware. It's got software all up in it, constantly monitoring its functions and adjusting the experience. I noticed maybe 10 little software level feature tweaks, though Microsoft probably already explained all of the boring software stuff during the part of their E3 press conference where I fell asleep. Now let's talk about the good stuff, the stuff you can see and feel. I'm just going to run down each part of the controller and talk about how it's changed from the Elite 1, whether it's better or not, and how it generally makes me feel. Spoilers, pretty much everything is better, though maybe two tiny things are technically not, though only if you're a weirdo like me. And I'll say again when this is all over, yes, I absolutely recommend you get a fancy video game controller, no matter which fancy video game controller it is, no matter which console you're playing on. I absolutely recommend that if you're a PC or an Xbox game player, however, you get this one. The rest of this video answers the questions of why this one, and maybe a future video of mine will answer the question of why should you get a fancy controller in the first place. Go ahead and like this video, and also comment if you'd like a big, long, weird, nonsense-filled video about why you should get a fancy controller in the first place, even if you're, like me, not a professional e-athlete. So let's get this one out of the way. The Xbox One Elite Controller Series 2 uses USB-C, which I think charges faster than USB-A or B, micro USB. It's also nice because the cable for a USB-C is symmetrical. And I don't know about you all, though. I actually have to take off my goddarn glasses when I want to plug in the micro USB to the back of my Xbox One Elite Series 1. Shout me out in the comments if you too got the presbyopia. This is about the pettiest nitpick I can manage here about the Xbox One Elite Series 2, which is I don't really like the included USB-C to A cable. It is skinny and wispy. I've put a Velcro on it from my own Velcro stash at home. You can see it here. It's wispy. It is braided, which is nice, and it is about 10 feet long, which is the standard length of cable that Microsoft has included with every Xbox controller. Sony has only ever included 6-foot cables for the DualShock 4, by the way, just saying. The Xbox One Elite Controller Series 2 nylon braided cable does not feel extremely sturdy on the ends, which is important to me because wireless controllers do not exist. They're still in beta as far as I'm concerned. I play my video games with the controller plugged in, and for that, I need a 10-foot cable, or else I'm uncomfortable, and I don't like being uncomfortable. I don't know about you. For my Xbox One Elite controller, I actually used a 10-foot nylon braided Anchor Powerline cable, and it served me well for several years. This one's actually in box. We can unbox this one. How's that for an unboxing video, huh? This is an Anchor braided cable. These are fantastic. They go on sale all the time. Get a whole bunch of them for the game liker in your life. Just buy a whole bunch of these. They're wonderful. They go up to about like 10,000 bends or whatever. You're never gonna break one of these. It's fantastic. Anchor actually does not make a 10-foot nylon braided USB-C to A cable, and that's the pettiest nitpick I can think of. Their 6-foot nylon plastic coated USB-C to A cable will not survive an hour of my precious little Bibby Babbis Pomeranian puppy's chew time, and I will not deny my Bibby Babbis his chew time. Pomeranians are the Xbox One Elite controller of dogs, by the way. I bought some 10-foot USB-C to A braided cables in Taiwan last year. They were like $1 each, and I swear this one packed with the Xbox One Elite Series 2 is the exact same goddarn cable with some fancy little peppermint stripy braiding, and that is the pettiest criticism I can muster. One thing I love is that there's a charger in the case. You see this? Look at this. You can plug the cable right into the back of the goddarn case. See that? We're gonna talk way too much about that a little bit later. Here's the second pettiest criticism I can muster. Unlike the Elite 1, the Elite 2 has an internal battery. I do not exactly like this. I used an Xbox One Play and Charge Kit for my Elite 1, and it served me just fine. The Play and Charge Kit gave me the peace of mind that I could easily replace this battery myself for about $20. However, now that the Elite 2 has an internal battery, I gotta play my goddarn video games with the eventual heat death of my controller's battery lodged somewhere in the back of my brain. And that kinda feels a little bit weird. What turns this into a piece of extremely petty criticism, of course, is the fact that I play all my Xbox games with the controller plugged in. So This doesn't even really matter. So now that we're done nitpicking, allow me to commence screaming about the stuff that I love about this controller. I love the weight of an Xbox One Elite controller, and the Elite 2 does not disappoint in the heft department. I feel like it might be a little bit heavier than the Elite 1. It might not be. Whatever it is, it's close. I think it's heavier. Now, I'm not a drug dealer. I just haven't shaved in 2 weeks because there's no hot water in my building because my landlord is a scumbag, because landlords are scumbags, and he won't answer the phone or reply to his texts, and the super won't answer the door or pick up the phone or reply to his texts either. And I've been taking cold showers for 2 weeks and not shaving. No, Mom, I'm not a drug dealer. So I don't own the sort of little scale I would need to prove which one of these controllers is heavier. Let's just say, I think it's heavier. Some people say they don't like the heft of an Xbox One Elite controller, and I don't get it. You've gotta love the heft. The heft is a symptom of security. The heft says, hey, this thing's literally made of steel. If you don't love the heft, there's a chance that you're weak. I know. I look like I fell out of the yokel tree 2 days ago, though I assure you, I can bench my body weight and kick as high as your groin. Furthermore, lately I've been experiencing some sort of carpal tunnel tingly finger problems, which my neurologist tells me happen because I spend too much of the day with my elbows bent. I wear a brace on my right arm when I sleep at night so as to keep the nerves straight. What I'm getting at is, a heavy controller keeps your elbows straight. I keep my Elite controller out on my lap. I hold it near my knees with my forearms resting on my thighs. Elbows straight, though not locked. It's just science. A heavy controller is literally better for your nerves. Shout me out in the comments if you want me to interview my neurologist on camera. He'll back me up. I wonder if insurance would actually cover that. We have pretty good insurance here. I love how black the Xbox One Elite controller Series 2 is. It is the Elite 1's goth big sister. They even carboned up the steel stems of the analog sticks. It's lovely to look at. I don't know if anyone really cares about this, though I gotta say I like this new Xbox button. It is much stiffer and has a much more confident short action. You only need to press it about 1/2 millimeter, though you really gotta dig in to do so. I like it better than this mushy sort of play school quality of the old Xbox buttons. See if we can get the sound of that. Can you hear this? You hear that? It's pretty heavy. Let's get back to these carbon steel goth analog sticks. With an Elite 1, you could take these tips off and you can swap them out. In the case, you had these taller tips. Let me do this. Let's see what we got with those taller tips. Taller stick tip, see that? You have those? Look at that. A taller stick tip for more precise movement. The Elite 2 still has those. Let's see if we got that. Look at that. You want to put a big boy on there, you can put a big boy on there. Big old tall stick. Look how shiny that is. They've got that dark shine to them now. It's beautiful. So the Elite Series 2 still has the multiple stick top options, though they go the extra 1.6 kilometers by allowing you to tighten or loosen the analog stick tension. You'll notice this little divot at the top here, this little key divot. So you use this little key included in the case. It's like a little drum key. Shout me out in the comments if you like your snare a little loose. So it fits in here, and you can just, I'm not gonna adjust it because I got it set just how I like it right now. This is just an incredible little addition. Like I'm almost speechless at this. Really, really finessey little touch that you don't really expect anybody to ever do with a piece of hardware like this. I mean, I'll admit that I tried out the stick tightening feature because I felt the duty to do so as a reviewer. Though I didn't think I was going to end up loving it. However, I did. I tightened up the left stick, and as I've already said, the software predicts and compensates for drift, which is neat, though I'm probably gonna need 100 violent hours with this thing to even notice that, so we'll have to leave that one as a question mark. And oh, I should point out that the Elite 1 includes some smooth vintage PlayStation 1 style mushroom-like analog stick toppers. Remember these? Remember these?
Remember these?
Does anybody remember these? It had these little mushroom toppers. See these? You put those on your Elite 1 if you want. If you want to have this little smooth thing for your finger to slip off of. If you want to just kind of remember the DualShock 1. If you're a big Ape Escape fan who played Ape Escape for like 300 hours and ran that thing smooth, you can have those on your Elite 1. The Elite 2, it ain't got those. And you know what? I did not goddamn cry. Now let's talk about the D-pad. I maintain that the Xbox One Elite controller, the original one, has the best D-pad for playing modern retro-style 2D platformers. It just does. We can get into this later. The Xbox One Series 2's D-pad is just as good as the Series 1. Now, I actually personally prefer to swap out the factory-installed disco ball D-pad that they insist on using in all their key art. They always have this. You'll notice I didn't even have it on here to begin with. This is the iconic disco ball. This one. There's what it looks like. They always put this in all their art. They're really proud of that, and it is a heck of a visual. It looks freaky, man. It looks like a goddarn Sega Saturn D-pad in like the year 2085 or whatever. I usually swap that out. I think I just called it factory installed. I said I swap out the factory installed D-pad. I'm sorry if that sounded pretentious. It's literally, it's on there with a magnet. It's not really that. Factory installed. I swap it out. Swap it out with that better one. And you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and swap it out of this old Elite one just because I'm gonna be playing with this later and I don't wanna take it out of the case and throw up. The disco ball D-pad's fine. It's fine, I just don't like it. Like a good mechanical keyboard or a cast iron skillet, the Xbox One Elite controller requires a little bit of seasoning before its buttons acquire their natural glide. In my 3 hours playing Bloodstained Ritual of the Night with the Series 2, I kept feeling a little tactile double float on the down press every time I hit the D-pad. No matter how I rotated the cross-shaped pad, you can rotate it, and it makes you think it fits different. It doesn't really fit different. And I didn't actually feel this little tactile float with the disco ball, so I'm not sure if that's how the cross-shaped pad is designed, if it's a manufacturing defect, or if it's just something that requires seasoning through several hours of playing games, though I just thought I'd throw that out there. Now, I can also tell you that the face buttons were stick and stiffy. What? Stick and stiffy? Speaking of seasoning, I can also tell you with confidence that the face buttons were stiff and a little bit sticky when I first started playing, though after about 2 hours of Bloodstained, they had started operating smoothly. At the beginning, the face buttons were jumping up slightly too slowly for maybe about the first hour that I played, causing a little bit of traction under my thumbs, and it was honestly very uncomfortable for me as a person who can beat Rondo of Blood and Castlevania Bloodlines without dying. I am old enough to know that blaming the controller means
You're a baby.
I can assure you that the controller grew into my button presses as I pressed it enough, and now the face buttons, I have no issue with them. And also as an aside, Bloodstained's on-screen tutorials keep presuming that I'm playing with the left analog stick, which, man, that's gross. That's a D-pad game. It turns out that the face buttons on the Xbox One Elite Controller Series 2 are great. Angle of incline is ever so slightly refined over the Series 1. It's a little bit too steep on the approach on these old ones. My finger can glide onto them with ease. Nothing is snagging between my fingernail and my skin, though I can distinctly feel the edges. And the actuation point of the buttons is actually significantly higher than the bottom of the press, which is good news for Cherry MX Blue keyboard users like myself who love to keep their fingertips hovering. The face buttons are great, which just goes to show you how dedicated this controller's engineers were to making this controller better. Because I mean, the purpose of the paddles on the back is to low-key de-necessitate the face buttons. They spent time and money refining something that they don't really want you to even use. That is dedication. Before I start yelling about the paddles for about 10 minutes, let's talk about the triggers. The Xbox One Elite Controller Series 2 has the Xbox's time-honored analog triggers. Every Xbox controller since the Duke has had analog triggers. Analog triggers are a big part of the Xbox heritage. Halo wouldn't be Halo without our memories of those big Duke triggers clattering with a wood chipper sound when the controller vibrated. However, quietly and softly, Microsoft is telling us that maybe analog triggers are not really that necessary. We've had analog triggers since, like, the Sega Saturn 3D analog controller that came packed with nights into dreams. I will fact check that later. Sega went all in on analog triggers with the Dreamcast. Sonic Adventure's pinball minigame used analog triggers for the flippers, which is not how pinball machine flippers even work. We could argue that the Namco Negicon controller packaged with the PlayStation game Ridge Racer Revolution in Japan was an early approximation of an analog trigger, though that was no more sophisticated in implementation than, for example, the sort of vintage arcade hardware dial controllers of games such as Arkanoid. Analog triggers have clung to video game controllers since the GameCube. The PlayStation 3 had them. The Xbox 360 had them. Analog triggers are great for driving games. They approximate gas and brake pedals quite nicely. Other than that, what are they for? The Nintendo Switch doesn't even have them, even on the Pro Controller. As a game designer, I have suggested and prototyped many analog trigger features, some of which have made it into AAA video games, though they were all removed at some point in development because they just were not fun. To which I say, that's fair. I've always wanted a game that asks me to pump the triggers in and out between 1% and 99%, just keep them floating. I think about this game quite often while staring at the Xbox One Elite controller's configuration interface. At any rate, games like Call of Duty only require about a 30% trigger pull to fire a weapon. So the hair trigger locks on the Xbox One Elite controller are perfect because they let me shoot in Titanfall 2, and then I can turn the locks off and drive in Forza Horizon 4. The Elite One let me lock the triggers to 75%, which cuts off the bottom 25% of the pull, meaning if you engaged the trigger locks in Forza Horizon 4, you would only be able to step on the gas 3/4 of the way. This does not help you win a race. Of course, you could always adjust the trigger throw distance in the Xbox Accessories app, but we're speaking broadly here. The Elite 2 has actually 3 levels of lock. As I said earlier, the software automatically adjusts the throw distance so that even at the shallowest lock level, you can get a full range of gas pedal in Forza. Not that I would want that though, because the shallowest lock level is bonkers shallow. The shallowest lock level actually turns the trigger into basically a Super Nintendo shoulder button, and I've got to say, I legit love that for shooting in something like Halo, though for driving in Forza, it's comically protracted. The second lock level gives you the old Xbox One Elite controller Series 1 75% distance, which I grew to love and prefer. Outside of Forza, I leave it right here most of the time. The triggers also have this nice grip texture on the tips for the Elite Series 2, and it's precious. I personally do not sweat on the tips of my fingers, so I didn't really notice it in my 25 hours. I mean, I've got weird fingers. My hands look like a tarantula wearing a Halloween costume. Let's talk about the bumpers. The bumpers on the Elite 1 were heck of mechanically clicky. They had a good, loud, hard clunk with each pull. And I remember talking about this with my buddy. You hear that? And he was like, I hate that, man. And I don't understand why he hated that. Buddy, if you're listening, it might please you to know that the Xbox One Elite Controller Series 2's bumpers do not click nearly as loudly. Hear that? Hold on, let's do this. Check this out. Hear that? Everybody hear that? Maybe it's indistinguishable from this very unscientific test. Though I'm going to tell you in the coldness of my living room, where the radiator doesn't work because the landlord's a scumbag, it's a difference. The Xbox One Elite Controller Series 2's bumpers also have a gentler curve here on the side, which makes them sublimely more accessible to the hammy portion of my index finger. Way more so than the Xbox Elite Series 1. Though I'll be honest, the bumpers on the Xbox One and PlayStation 4 controllers have been so bad for me personally that as soon as Scuff invented paddles, I've been putting most bumper actions on my rear paddles because paddles are just in a better, more reachable place for my fingers than bumpers ever are. And I also like to put analog stick clicks on paddles because clicking a stick means sacrificing control precision. It looks like now we have to talk about the paddles. I love the paddles on the Xbox One Elite Controller Series 2. They're indisputably better than the paddles on the Elite 1. I just can't imagine anyone saying that they like the Elite 1 controller paddles better than the Elite 2. The main immediate first impression I got out of the paddles was the tactile bump when you pull them. So the Elite 1 paddles were hair triggery. to a point of instilling fear in accidental button presses in a lot of players I talk to. Listen to these, first of all. Hear that? You can hear this. Right? Now listen to the two. I think even with this unscientific test, that's a remarkable difference. You can hear the tactile bump. So I know several people who own the Elite 1 and say they never use the paddles because they say they're afraid of accidentally pressing them. And this is actually a pretty valid fear. You know how like if you put your PlayStation 4 controller down on your sofa, your Bloodborne character might scream and swing their axe or whatever, and you have a goddamn heart attack? The Xbox One Elite Controller Series 1 owners lived with that fear while playing games, not just while taking breaks from playing games. Though when you put an Xbox One controller down, the triggers, they don't trigger when you put it down. I actually learned to like the light touch of the Xbox One Elite Controller Series 1 paddles, though for reference I do keep my guitar action pretty low. I'm sorry, Dad, I have a light touch. I can bench press my own body weight, and I have the palm calluses to prove it, though I have a light touch elsewhere. The Elite Series 2 paddles have this tiny, delightfully popcorn-like tactile bump upon actuation. They offer enough milligrams of resistance to hover beautifully between hair trigger and mechanical keyboard. The paddle action has been so minutely engineered that I can't help imagining Microsoft poured huge resources into just this one refinement alone. It's almost as though they overheard all my conversations with a certain Kotaku staff member who shall not be named, who loves the Elite controller despite never using the paddles. Microsoft wants you to use these paddles. Forget Microsoft, I want you to use these paddles. You can jump in Apex Legends while aiming. That's almost like using a mouse and keyboard. Notice I said almost, by the way. We're not going to have the mouse and keyboard argument here. Actually, yes, let's do that. Mouse and keyboards is still better for shooters. The end. Being able to assign paddles as a shift button. Now this is a godlike feature. I did not know I wanted this. I'm not gonna lie. Usually I sit around in my dark office here atop Kotaku skyscraper feeling pretty good about myself. I'm like, I could work for Nintendo. I'm like, I'd better turn my phone off of Do Not Disturb so Sony can call me about that CEO position. Occasionally I tweet, "Great job, guys," at Phil Spencer, head of Xbox, because I know that someday he's going to offer me his job. Though right now, I gotta say, I might not have been able to come up with the shift button feature. And yes, I've played Kingdom Hearts 2 and Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep. I should have seen this coming. For example, in Forza, I set my lower left paddle to shift and my lower right paddle's shifted function to record that. My lower right paddle's non-shifted function was handbrake, and the upper two paddles, they operate my gear shift. So I pulled off like a really nice drift, and then I was able to capture it, and I still won the race, and yes, it was an online race. I am pretty good at racing games. Sorry. So when it came to the shift feature, my brain immediately went to content creation possibilities, though afterward I started to consider game designerly ideas. Having upper left paddle for sprint and upper right paddle for jump and shifted upper left paddle for grenade in Call of Duty just made immediate sense to me. But now I'm thinking it should be shifted upper right. The shift function lets you make games feel more stick shift, gives you a clutch, makes you feel more like you're driving your game manual transmission. And this is pretty good for people who actually like manual transmission, not just people who say they like manual transmission to impress people. Shout me out in the comments if you want an hour-long video about why manual transmission actually encapsulates nurturing motherly values and not the beer-drinking manly man values people think it does. One thing you can't see here with the controller unplugged is that the controller visually indicates the remap profiles with this little LED hamburger here. Fun fact, user interface designers call those 3 horizontal lines a hamburger. Shout me out in the comments if you did not know that. Also, shout me out if you think I'm lying, because I'm not. Actually, I can get the hamburger to show up if I turn the controller on like that. See that? So these 3 little lines, that actually means 3 profiles. And you can hold this profile switch button to turn off the profiles, which is turn all the paddles off, turn all the mappings off, which I actually have done twice. So overall, this is a better interface than the delicate little mechanical slider on the Xbox One Elite Controller 1, which has your 1 on the left and your 2 on the right. You have to remember which is which. I actually like the hamburger, and it's just, this is your elegant little design where it's off for off, 1 for the first, 2 lines for the second, 3 lines for the third. I like that. Thanks to this shift button functionality and the easier profile switching feature, I've gotten a lot more creative with my paddle mappings in the 25 hours I've spent with the Elite 2 than I did with the 2,800 hours I spent with the Elite 1. And also, I'm gonna let you in on a little secret. I may be Kotaku.com's biggest paddle evangelist, though I will admit that for most games on the Xbox Elite Controller Series 1, I only used 2 paddles, as red-handedly evidenced here by this controller only having 2 paddles on the back. Remember when I said some people don't like the hair-triggerishness of the Elite 1's paddles? I see where they're coming from. So for many games, I removed the lower paddles from my Xbox Elite 1. You can remove them very easily like that. For example, for Dark Souls Remastered on the Xbox One, I only play with 2 paddles. That was the most recent game I played with this controller. Now for the Elite 2, I actually have a revised 4-paddle Dark Souls profile that puts my Estus flask on a shift, and I have my shift on my lower left, and I have block here, and I have roll here, and then I have Estus flask as shift and roll. So I can roll, shift and roll, and I can keep block and dodge up here on these paddles. I have a light attack on my lower right unshifted paddle. I'm still messing with it. I might refine it a little bit, though for now I'm kind of digging it. There are 2 things that got me over my hesitation about the lower right paddle. And I say lower right paddle, I should point this out. I am ambidextrous. I'm both left and right-handed. I switch up my chopstick hands depending on which side of me the person is sitting on if I'm eating with someone. The lower right paddle is the one I specify here because it's in proximity to the right analog stick, and the right analog stick is used for movement of the camera, and the whole reason paddles exist is because the right analog stick is usually used for camera in modern competitive games like first-person shooters. You know, doing this sucks. They call that the claw. So the paddles were invented to compensate for that. If you're watching this video and you're unfamiliar with what paddles are, I know I've been speaking granularly about paddles for about 6 years at this point. So in other words, the paddles exist to combat the claw, which is this. You don't want to play like that. That's terrible. That's tendinitis in a teacup, is what that is. The lower right paddle is the one that I always felt weird about, and I would sometimes use a lower left paddle on my Elite Series 1. The lower right one I felt weird about because that's the one in closest proximity to the right analog stick, which you're prone to be controlling with the most finesse. With the Elite 2, I actually felt myself in 25 hours make extremely great strides toward getting over my hesitation and apprehension about the lower right paddle. So there's 2 reasons that I've gotten over this. And I don't know if I've gotten fully over it yet, though I've gotten mostly over it. And I'll tell you what these 2 reasons are. And one of these reasons I've already mentioned, which is the fact that the paddles have more heft to them. And once again, let's listen. Sounds lovely. The other reason is the ergonomics of the controller itself. The Elite 2 is much more ergonomic compared to the Elite 1 that in silhouette you might not be able to tell, though. If you look up close, you can literally see it. Just look at the scaly stippling evidence, like it's even in the in-UI art. I'll throw that up on the screen there. That's the in-UI art you're looking at. Now, it's even evident there. So I loved my Elite 1 so much that until playing with an Elite 2, for about an hour, I did not realize how baldly smooth the Elite 1's upper corners are. It's almost like an aniline leatherette, like a fake leather almost. I did not realize how smooth they are. On the Elite 1, with this positively Lovecraftian size of my hands, combined with the slippery surface of the upper corners, conspired to cause the bottom knuckles of my index fingers to always jockey for position purchase up here. And so this kept me subconsciously on edge. It also kept me wary of the bumpers. This might have led to my back fingers, my middle ring and pinky, more daintily tarantulating the rear of the controller. And this might have been the root of my paddle apprehensions. Remember, I keep my bumpers on the paddles most of the time, so I like to pull the triggers with my index fingers. On the Elite 2, with these crunchier, buttery popcorn paddles and a more stipply surface, my fingers dangle down more freely without cramping or tingling. I actually feel able to comfortably palpate the paddles while still firmly gripping the controller sides with my upper hands. So my grip I can still enforce a strong inward grip while being aware of the texture of the paddles, which by the way, they're much more nicely textured. I marathoned my playtest with this controller and I did not, I mean, it's, again, can't really say. I'm no doctor of sports medicine. Even in my marathon play session, I don't feel like my hands were as tired as with the Elite 1. My hands do get tired sometimes because, I mean, look at these things, these weird things. I play Goddarn Destiny, my Goddarn veins start popping out. Is this enough detail for everybody, by the way? Everybody, shout me out in the comments if this is enough detail for you. Tell me if it's not enough detail. I'm trying to do gear reviews a little bit differently from other people out there, so seriously, like, let me know how I'm doing. Let me know if you want more like this. Finally, I want to talk about the case, which is right here. It's wonderful. And as I said earlier, it's got this nice little USB-C hole. Right there, I call it USB. It's a nice little USB-C hole right there in the back. You can plug that cable in. Let me show you what that looks like. Plug the cable in and charge it through the case. That's not quite all the way there. That's goddamn hilarious, right? And my Elite 1, so my Elite 1, you'll notice if you want to get a beauty shot of this here, give me that beauty shot. My Elite 1 is filthy. It's covered in grease. It's actually not as filthy as you'd think it would be after 2,800 hours. I do wipe it off with a microfiber cloth every now and again. Do I have a microfiber cloth? Get one of these. This is from Fry's, San Jose, California, Pride of San Jose. Wipe that off. Shout me out if you like San Jose. It's like, I do wipe it off pretty often. It does not play well with Velcro. And put that back in my bag. Also, these microfibers, these basic Dumbo-looking terry clothy microfibers, they are way better for wiping off glasses than any glasses cleaning cloth that comes in the glasses case when you buy your glasses at an eyeglass shop. I've sold so many people on these. I mean, I should, any microfiber cloth company, it needs a new executive. Bring me on. If you're looking at the up-close beauty angles on this Xbox One Elite Controller Series 2, right around here on the buttons and the analog stick, I've already kind of greasied it up a little bit. You can see that. See, you can see my finger residue on that rubber surface of that Elite 2. And you know what? I could have wiped that off. I didn't. You know why I didn't wipe it off? Because it proves that I used it, man. This isn't an unboxing video. This is an unboxed video. I'm gonna confess something right now. When the Xbox Elite Controller Series 1 came out, me and my buddy, I won't name my buddy, I won't drag him into this, we used to reference Kotaku.com's Mike Fahey's Xbox One Elite Controller review all the time. And we did so like slightly mockingly. The first line of his review was something like, "The first thing you're gonna notice when you open the box is a case. You're not gonna wanna throw that away." Whenever me and my buddy started up like a voice chat party about to play Gears of War or whatever, each one of us with our Elite controllers, one of us would invariably wind up saying, "Hey, what should I do with this case my controller was in? Should I throw that away?" And then one of us would pretend to Google it and say something like, well, Kotaku says you should keep it. And I'm confessing this now on camera because now Kotaku literally pays my rent. In return for having my rent paid, I like to subject myself to the weirdest possible gestures of supplication. In summary, Mike Fahey, I'm sorry for making fun of your Kotaku article. We made fun of that article because the controller case was undeniably nice. Why would you throw it away? It looks very nice. It's made of nice nylon. And the controller was expensive. And me and my friend, we had the perspective of each having paid a lot of money for our controllers just so we could replay Halo, which we had played a million times before. We needed something to convince us that this thing was precious. And we had not gotten our controllers for free. We wanted to keep them clean and lovely. We wanted to treat our controllers nicely. And the case was, at least, it was made of a nice material. It had this nice nylon plastic heavy-duty zipper pull on it. You can see this really lovely military spec kind of texture on it. However, eventually, I gotta admit, I kind of started to want to throw this case in the garbage. With that, let's take a look at my old Xbox One Elite Controller Series 1 case before I crack open the Series 2 case. So we're gonna open this up. And okay, so I actually feel like I daintily placed it here on the table earlier. So I'm gonna simulate the act of carrying it across my living room from my desk to my sofa, which is a motion it goes through every night. I also put it in my backpack and I play Xbox games here at the Kotaku office with this controller, my Xbox One Elite controller from home. I'm gonna simulate it having been in my backpack because I know we're just gonna go ahead and jostle it a couple of times. I could put it in my backpack. We don't need to get that scientific. I'm gonna jostle it. This is me walking down the steps of my apartment building. This is the New York subway. Okay, so now let's take a look inside. Are we ready? There's no controller inside, so. The science is ruined. So this is what it looks like. It looks like goddarn this. And it took like a month of my owning this thing before the glue on this little rubber tool holder just gave all the way up and took a dump. If I throw this in my backpack, I can walk maybe 16 feet. I can walk maybe halfway down the stairs of my apartment building before the tools dislodge and start clattering around underneath the controller inside the case. This thing is sort of less of a case and more of a disgrace. And yet, so many times I would end up with one of the paddles. Let's get this, sop it up. A little soup and bread here. Well, I'm gonna simulate this. We're gonna do the old liar style. Like very often I would have the paddle just like stuck to the bottom of this little toolkit. And this D-pad always falls out. This is the worst thing that I can confess about the Xbox One Elite Series 1 is that this just drove me bonko, is these things popping out like this. And these paddles fit in such a strange manner. And this little goddarn foam wedge that's supposed to hold the controller in place, it should have been glued in there. It should have goddarn been glued in there. And it's like, I thought many times I considered gluing it in myself. I almost like super glued it in place maybe a dozen times over the past 4 years. And somehow I never got around to it because I didn't want my controller smelling like super glue. I wanted it smelling like my gross hands and Cheetos. So yeah, that's just, this thing just comes off all the time. It's nasty. It's really nasty. I'm sorry. Also, I can't really figure out which way this thing's supposed to go. D-pad popped off. The D-pad sometimes magnetizes to the bottom of the controller. See this? I mean, these are the goddarn tornado park style things that happen to this thing. What tornado park? Like these are the sort of things that you just put up with, and the experience of the controller is so superior, sublime, super beautiful, wonderful. It's an excellent piece of video game hardware that you put up with this sort of stuff. And I always thought it would be neat if somebody made like a high-end case. Me and my buddy playing Halo online, being like, we should invent a better case. We should Kickstart it, dude. Nobody's gonna buy a Kickstarted case for an Xbox One Elite controller. However, once you've held the Xbox One Elite controller Series 2's case for about 47 seconds, you will want to throw the Series 1 case into the garbage. So it's the same sort of nylon. It's actually, I think it's a little bit more of a tight weave, and it feels doubly sturdy. And everything's in there just gloriously tight. So let's take a look at this. With the Series 1's case, again, for about I've done it about 16 times now, 17th time, let's say this thing sucks. It always came out. And I wish it had just been hard blasted in there, like injection molded in there. And with the Elite Series 2, they goddarn had a camera right inside my brain. And this is firm. This is goddarn Tom Cruise in John Grisham's The Firm right here. Gary Oldman's The Firm. You ever seen The Firm with Gary Oldman? Check it out. I think it's on Amazon Prime. Wonderful, wonderful film. It's about football hooligans. It's incredible. Okay, we're gonna stop talking about Gary Oldman. Kind of want to just talk about Gary Oldman now. There's a battery charger inside the controller case. You see these little metal contacts on the back of the controller here? That actually sits in the case, and it charges in the case through this, again, the little USB-C hole. And again, it doesn't really make much of a difference to me because I play wired 99% of the time, though. If you're gonna love that, you might as well, right? And look at that. This is impressive. This is gorgeous. It comes out. And I actually put there's this little piece of felt on there to protect the connectors in transit. It's not felt, it's microfiber. It's better than a sheet of plastic. It shows slightly more respect. I sort of doilied it, I daintily doily placed it back on here. Just doilied. I doilied it.
I doilied it.
We're gonna just leave it back on there because in the spirit of reboxing, trust me, it works. And it's actually magnetic. So it magnetizes into the controller like this. It's magnetic, god darn it. You can hear it. Maybe I could have just slammed it down there really hard. Trust me. And it stays in there nice and hard. And even if I take it out, which you can do, take it out, still firmly in there. The zipper tape actually pulls down over, forming a seal. It's not watertight, you know, it's not gonna, don't take it to the goddamn pool. Don't take it out fishing. Don't do that. It feels like it's more coverage than on the old case. Little charger comes out, it's beautiful. And I feel like when it's in there, I feel like we shake this, a little bit of a shake this. Less of a thing going on inside. I don't know if you can hear that. I hear it and I feel it, so trust me on that. You're the one watching this video because you might be about to spend $180 on this thing. I want you to know that the case is very sturdy. It feels very sturdy, even without the charger wedge in there. So I'm gonna put the charger wedge back in. And again, as you can see, actually before I put that in, you can see that that is just very solidly molded and cemented in there very hard. Very, very sturdy. I can't stress this enough. I'm very impressed with this case. No one would imagine throwing this case away. Nobody. You'd have to be some sort of billionaire weirdo to throw this case away. I would say whereas the Xbox Elite Series 1's controller case felt almost military spec, I would say that the Xbox One Elite Controller Series 2's case is military spec. You actually, check this out. When you put the controller back in the box, we're gonna put it back in the box. See this up here? There's a little slot in the mold divot for this nylon plastic zipper pull. Here, see how that goes in like that? That sort of thing's just hilarious to me. That is some American engineering ingenuity right there. And you know what? That's the whole Xbox ethos right there. So I talk a lot about loving the Xbox. I often say in my videos or on streams or on Twitter that I prefer the Xbox One to the PlayStation 4 for everything except PlayStation exclusives. You can't play PlayStation exclusives on the Xbox One. Anything multi-platform looks better on the Xbox One X. And if you don't believe me, find my house. I will queue up the same scene of Red Dead Redemption 2 on both the PlayStation 4 Pro and the Xbox One X because yes, I have completed save files on both consoles because my job is a nightmare. I will plug you in to a polygraph machine and I will ask you which one looks better. If you say the PlayStation 4 Pro looks better, or if you're like,
they both look pretty good, man, I don't know.
That polygraph needle is gonna look like it's having a birthday party. The Xbox One Elite controller is the ethereal ethos of an Xboxer made substantial. So we Xboxers want the better experience. We appreciate Microsoft's dedication to constantly drilling down on the fundamentals. And we're not afraid to pay a weird pseudo-premium cost for it. Microsoft's whole thing this console generation has been to make tiny things imperceptibly better until you get to a point where you look back on the tapestry and you're like, hey, that's pretty cool. This didn't make them as much money as Sony made, though whatever, man. We got our Red Dead Redemption 2 with working HDR. And now there's a PC version which runs in 60 FPS, though still, I had HDR and native 4K for a whole year. Microsoft appears so devoted to honoring its heritage through things like their backward compatibility program that I wouldn't put it past them to use this same controller for the next Xbox. The next box. Sony's over there showing Wired Magazine their adaptive analog stick friction that makes you actually feel like you're sliding on ice. Nobody even likes ice levels, Sony, except for me. The Xbox is America, the video game console. And the Xbox One Elite controller is Xbox, the video game controller. It's American engineering in a controller. And I don't know if it's made in America. It says hello from Seattle on the back here, which is neat. I don't know if it's actually made there. I looked it up and I couldn't figure it out. It might be made in China. I don't think the Xbox One Elite Controller Series 2 is manufactured in America, though it feels like it was. And in case you think I'm being facetious here, I want you to know that I love goods made in America. I mean, look at this. I own this pair of US Air Force issue Randolph Aviator sunglasses. These are handmade on a bench in Massachusetts. I also own this GoRuck GR1 backpack, handmade in the USA by a company founded by a former Green Beret. I also own this jacket, which was made in Japan, though it was made on the literal sewing machines used to make military jackets in World War II, purchased from the US government by the Toyo Enterprises Corporation. As I get older, I find myself turning more and more into a pragmatic minimalist who wants to own the fewest, yet best, goods possible. I care most deeply about permanence. For example, I'm pretty sure this GoRuck GR1 is the last black backpack I will ever own. I care a lot about the manufacturing process, and right now, the Xbox One Elite controller is the only piece of anything in the entire video game industry that can sit alongside these goods right here. Maybe those are some big words. Maybe I'm quote unquote firing the shots at Razer and Corsair and every gaming chair manufacturer. I can't think of a single gaming chair manufacturer off the top of my head. There's literally like 1,000. The Xbox One Elite Controller Series 2 transcends quote unquote gamer goods and firmly stands alongside just well-made, well-engineered stuff. So if this appeals to you and you plan on playing a lot of Xbox games, which sure is easy to do with Xbox Game Pass, aka the best deal in video games. I'm not even being paid to say that. If you plan on playing a lot of video games on an Xbox or a PC, this controller already loves you. If you don't want to buy it for yourself, put it on a holiday wish list. Maybe you'll get lucky. It's just a heck of a thing to own. It's the Mercedes-Benz of video game controllers, and if you play a lot of video games, you might as well drive a Mercedes-Benz. If you're a PC game player and you already own a Zowie mouse and a Philco keyboard and a nice Japanese-made laser-etched wooden wrist rest for your Philco keyboard, and you want a controller that'll outlive both of your graphics cards, I recommend this. I mean, it's not like you're afraid of spending money. In fact, you seem like the sort of person who loves spending money and then showing up in internet comments to make fun of people who have not spent as much money as you have. Before I wrap this up, I want to talk to the people who felt burned by the first Elite controller. So every time I mention my Xbox One Elite Controller Series 1 in a video or on a stream, I get commenters or people in the stream chat telling me about their bad experiences with this first series of the controller. And I don't disbelieve the existence of manufacturing defects, it's just that I personally, in thousands of hours of aggressive, big-handed video game playing, never experienced any of the defects that these people speak of. I read all of the comments on a video on Kotaku.com's YouTube channel in which Kotaku.com editor-in-chief Stephen Totillo gave his hands-on impressions of the Xbox One Elite Controller Series 2 at E3 2019. Many of you wanted to know if the sticks still drifted. And in this video, I've addressed the new software compensation for that, though again, I can't say without a couple dozen more hours playing time whether the sticks. Many of you wanted to know if the grip rubber was going to come unglued, and I personally never had an issue with the grip glue on the Xbox One Elite Controller Series 1. For the purpose of this video, I did let one of the fingernails on my left hand grow a little bit longer than usual, and I got it through the seam and the grips of the Elite Series 1. I kind of flossed it in here and tried to wiggle it around under the gums just so I could see where you were all coming from. I didn't rip it out because it's my thing and I paid for it and I own it, and I don't want to rip my beloved possession apart. I tried to do some slightly gentler version of the same thing for the Elite 2, and I can't say I even glimpsed the STIPPLY grip skin wiggle one iffy little millimeter. So, put it in there. Feels pretty tight. Having said that, I am sure that some deep manufacturing flaws will occur for some buyers. I just don't see any of them on this unit sent to Kotaku.com for review. Many of you in the comments are now going to say that maybe Microsoft sent me one of the good ones. I mean, you know, maybe. I will not say that this is the best video game controller ever made, because to be honest, I don't know what the best video game controller ever made even means right now. I used to say that the original Xbox One Elite controller was the best controller ever made, and then the SCUF Vantage controllers came along and changed my idea of what the best video game controller ever made might be. What I can say is this. For me, a weirdo who has spent almost 3,000 hours manhandling the original Xbox One Elite controller, the Xbox One Elite Controller Series 2 is so much better than its predecessor in every way that I would buy one immediately if it weren't both sold the heck out online right now, and if I had anywhere near that kind of money. With that, it's time to put this thing back in the box and go put it on the game shelf in Kotaku.com headquarters, from whence I shall never remove it again. I was born stupid, however, I will not die hungry. Video games forever. Kotaku.com. Xbox Elite Wireless Controller Series 2. That's the full name of it. In my script, I kept writing Xbox Elite Controller Series 2 or Elite 2, though the full product name of this thing is, according to the box, Xbox Elite Wireless Controller Series 2. I'm not going to say it that way. I'm going to leave the word wireless out because I do not believe in wireless controllers. Wireless controllers are like, they're pretty much Bigfoot. I don't believe in them. So I'm just going to call it the Xbox Elite Controller Series 2, or the Elite 2 for short.